My name is Isla, and I'm an ordinary person, but I have three extremely powerful and remarkable friends. I was torn apart by zombies in my previous life, and then I was reborn. After being reborn a week before the start of the apocalypse, I sprang up from the bed in one leap and immediately called my friends to urgently stock up on supplies to defend against the zombies. However, I found that they were also reborn. Me, wasn't this rebirth cheat only given to me? 1. I died in the third year of the zombie outbreak during the apocalypse. The zombie king breached the base in the city where I was. The sounds of wailing were unceasing. I didn't awaken any superpowers and was overwhelmed by the zombie horde along with other ordinary people. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying on the soft small bed in the staff apartment of the Chemical Research Institute. I sat up gasping for air, my hair damp with sweat and sticking to my forehead. My mind was still immersed in extreme panic and pain. I looked at my intact and smooth skin in a state of shock. If my body wasn't still convulsing from the intense pain of being bitten by zombies, I might have thought I had just had a nightmare. The TV at the end of the bed was broadcasting the news. Today, the city's Prevention and Control Center has discovered a case of high-risk rabies. Please pay attention, citizens. I couldn't listen to the rest of the words. I frantically fished out my phone from under the pillow and started looking through the contact list. I knew it wasn't rabies. On August 31st, 2023, the first case of the zombie virus appeared in Jiang City. I was reborn a week before the apocalypse. It was already 12 o'clock at night, and I was frantically dialing my friends' numbers. I made over 100 calls in a row. But all I heard on the other end of the phone was a cold robotic female voice. Hello. The number you have dialed is currently in use. Please try again later. As an orphan who grew up in an orphanage, I didn't have much to care about in this world, except for my three friends. We were all children from the orphanage, and the four of us grew up supporting each other. We were not only friends but also family. After graduating from university, we each found our own careers in different fields. Although we were in the same city, we lived in different parts of it due to work. Nevertheless, we still maintained the habit of gathering once a month, until the zombie outbreak later. We never saw each other again. In my previous life, I offered various rewards to ask people to inquire about their whereabouts, but I got nothing in return. The search team member who took on my commission patted me on the shoulder and said, "Look on the bright side. In this world, they either have already died in the mouth of some zombie, or they are still struggling to survive in some base like us." I firmly believe that bad guys always live long. These guys must all still be alive. When I was overwhelmed by the zombie horde, the last thought that flashed through my mind was, fortunately, the three of them weren't in this base. Damn, it really hurts when zombies bite. I'm leaving first. Let's be friends again in the next life. In the blink of an eye, I was reborn before the apocalypse, this time, in this new life. We all have to live well and see the spring flowers bloom together again, too. Since I couldn't get through on the phone, I got up and was about to go out to intercept them when I suddenly remembered that we also had a QQ group chat. After 3 years in the apocalypse, I almost forgot how to use modern technology. I smiled bitterly and opened the chat app. Instantly, my phone froze due to the overwhelming 999 plus messages. The unread messages jumped to the first one. And the content on the first page of the group chat was quite astonishing. Evelyn, the end of the world is coming. I've rented the address of the mountain villa. Come quickly. Connor, what a coincidence. You were reborn too. Victor, necessities list for the apocalypse. Doc, give Isla a call and let's go pick her up. Is this a wholesale rebirth? The amount of information was a bit overwhelming, and I stared at the group chat in a daze. Watching them quickly finalize the reinforcement and renovation of the villa, the quantity of food to be purchased, the meeting place, and the procurement plan for the next day. The last message stopped 2 minutes ago. At Isla, why can't we get through to your phone? We're downstairs at your place. Come down quickly. I even forgot to change my clothes. I jumped up from the bed in a hurry and ran downstairs in my slippers. My slippers fell off twice on the way, pushing open the unit door. A Jeep Wrangler was parked downstairs, the car door was open, and the three guys were leaning against the car smoking, looking at their familiar faces that I hadn't seen for 3 years. My eyes welled up with tears, and I burst into tears. I rushed forward with snot and tears and threw myself into Evelyn's arms. Evelyn used to always laugh at me for being a crybaby, but this time she didn't make fun of me. She stroked my head and hugged me tightly. The faint smell of her lady cigarette was very pleasant. It's cold at night. Why didn't you put on more clothes before coming down? When she said this, she was only wearing a thin shirt. For someone like her who always pays attention to her appearance and whose three-piece suit seems to be tattooed on her body no matter what the occasion, this was a bit strange. I missed you guys so much. I searched for you for a long time during the apocalypse but couldn't find you. I choked out the words intermittently. A large coat was draped over me. I turned around, and Connor was standing there lazily with half a cigarette in his mouth. Little crybaby, what are you looking at me for? I'm not cold. Get in the car first. Victor crushed the cigarette but with his shoe. His voice was calm and reassuring. It's not safe outside. We can talk about things in the car. 3. We exchanged information in the car. They woke up a few hours earlier than me, and with money. A lot can be done in those few hours. The 1,000 square meter villa comes with a basement. People will come to install bulletproof glass and a high-voltage power grid tomorrow. Evelyn's words were very much in line with her status as a boss lady. Victor was driving in the front and said slowly, I've already asked an acquaintance to buy the commonly used medicines and medical equipment. They will be delivered to the villa the day after tomorrow. As a researcher at the Virus Prevention and Control Research Institute, he still has some connections. I really couldn't buy a gun. Just now, I bought a bundle of machetes. The shop owner almost called the police and had me arrested. Connor crossed his legs and then became cocky again as he spoke. I also bought a batch of labor protection uniforms, stun guns, and batons in the name of borrowing them for an artist's bodyguards. And there's also a generator. Wait a minute, where did you get the money? I suddenly looked up in confusion while listening and stared at Connor suspiciously. This guy has always been a moonlighter who believes in living in the moment. Although he's a rising star, he spends money lavishly and has no savings at all. Controlled items are not cheap. I bet Connor won't be able to afford this money by the end of the month. I took out a 10 million yuan nude loan. If the apocalypse doesn't come, I'll be ruined and have to rely on you guys to support me for the rest of my life. Connor whistled leisurely. I looked at Connor in shock and was speechless. Evelyn suggested that he could go and perform stripteases at that time to earn a living. However, the lack of a gun is indeed a very troublesome thing. After all, in the apocalypse, it's not just zombies that we need to defend against. I thought for a while, logged onto an anonymous forum, and bought some things. Planning to make some self-defense gadgets myself, for the car drove along the mountain road and stopped in front of a luxurious villa on the mountaintop. The villa came with a fence and a small garden. I stood on the balcony and looked out at the lights of the entire city, feeling a myriad of emotions. Evelyn chose this place because of its wide view, its distance from the urban area, and its defensibility. I didn't sleep all night. In the morning, we sat around the table having breakfast. I ate very preciously. After the apocalypse, the unified distribution was either compressed biscuits or nutritional paste. I hadn't had a proper meal like this for a long time. Evelyn snatched the last piece of soy sauce spare ribs from under Connor's chopsticks and put it into my bowl. I buried my head in my food and happily ate the big piece of meat. Today's breakfast was cooked by Victor. His cooking skills are top-notch, especially compared to the lazy Connor and Evelyn. And me who can only make tomato and egg with instant noodles. The male housekeeper is truly the best. Just like in the previous life, my supervisor was transferred to the city's prevention and control center a month later. Yesterday, I lost contact with him. The last message he sent me was, "Don't go out." After everyone had almost finished eating, Victor put down his chopsticks after he was full. There was a dead silence in the air. I had met his supervisor, a very cheerful little old man. We all knew that the epidemic first broke out at the city's prevention and control center, but in the previous life, the time when he sent me this message, Victor glanced at the different expressions on everyone's faces, paused, and then continued, was 3 days later. I felt as if there was a heavy weight in my stomach and something was getting out of control. I heard my own dry voice. That means the virus is spreading faster this time around. Maybe we don't have a week's worth of preparation time this time. Victor pursed his lips and summarized, after the topic during breakfast, everyone was in a bad mood. In the morning, the security team came to install the high-voltage power grid and bulletproof glass. No way, this job definitely can't be done in a day. The person in charge shook his head frantically as he looked at the 40m*30m fence of the villa. The person in charge estimated the workload and emphasized, "It will take at least 10 days, Evelyn." One day, the person in charge said, "You see, the explosion-proof door also needs to be replaced. We really can't manage it." Evelyn silently pressed a long string of numbers on the calculator. The person in charge's tone suddenly changed, and his face beamed even more brightly than a chrysanthemum. "We'll finish it even if we can't manage it, as long as the customer needs it. There's nothing we can't do, in the end." The boss lady Evelyn supervised the work at home, and I went out to do the shopping with Victor and Connor. 5. We deliberately waited until the security and renovation workers left before driving the trucks full of goods back. There were 3 full trucks. People who knew would know that we were stockpiling supplies, and those who didn't know might think we were going to open a supermarket in the mountains. While unloading the goods, Connor complained, "That old man who sold canned food hadn't sold so many canned goods in ages." He looked at us like we were big fools, especially rich big fools. Victor silently added 2 more boxes of huge and heavy canned goods to Connor's hands and was satisfied to hear a muffled groan, after which the world became quiet. "Excuse me for asking this." After unloading 3 large sacks of potatoes, Evelyn looked at the 3 more sacks still in the truck and narrowed her eyes dangerously. "Isla, why did you buy so many potatoes?" Potatoes are a high-yield staple food. If they sprout, they can be planted, they can be stored in the refrigerator or freezer. The resistant starch in refrigerated potatoes is good for blood sugar, and they can be used to make French fries, stewed potatoes, stir-fried potato shreds with potato chunks. My voice gradually became quieter. "Why else, of course. She's afraid she won't be able to eat French fries in the future." Connor, passing by with 2 boxes of ketchup, sneered, "She almost cleared out all the potatoes in the vegetable market. You still have the nerve to talk about me." I immediately shouted and exposed him. "You said how could we eat French fries without ketchup, and you even added 2 extra boxes out of personal preference. All right, then you too will be responsible for peeling, cutting, and packaging these 6 large sacks of potatoes into pieces and freezing them later." Evelyn made the decision. "No, boss." Connor and I quickly knelt down and clung to Evelyn's legs, crying bitterly. Sure enough, shopping is fun for a moment, but unloading and organizing is like a cremation ground. The 4 of us spent half the night moving all the various fresh and frozen meats, rice, noodles, canned goods, plant seeds, household appliances, etc., from the trucks into the house. We only stocked up on drinking water for a month, but we bought a lot of disinfectants and water purifiers. The virus is afraid of high temperatures, and rainwater can be consumed after being disinfected, filtered, and distilled at a high temperature. Afterwards, the 4 of us lay on the sofa in various postures, looking like we were dead, and no one wanted to talk. "There's still so much work to do tomorrow." Ding! At this moment, our phones simultaneously received a text message notification, pushing out a new message dash. "Dear citizens of Jiang City, due to the sudden and complex situation of the current new rabies virus epidemic and the shortage of medical resources in the city, our city is now optimizing the epidemic prevention and control measures, lifting the temporary control, and shifting to individual self-protection. Please reduce unnecessary outings." The 4 of us looked at each other simultaneously. The medical emergency prevention and control system in Jiang City had completely collapsed. We didn't have much time left. 6. Early in the morning, while Evelyn and the others were still asleep, I tiptoed and quietly opened the door. Express delivery. The person sent by the anonymous forum to deliver the goods was a surly man wearing a black hat and a mask, so I couldn't see his face clearly. There was a long scar on his brow, and that scar looked somewhat familiar. When signing for the goods, I was sharp-eyed enough to see the dark purple patterns on his neck when he lowered his head. When I met his bloodshot eyes, I retracted the silent crossbow in my arms. It wasn't out of compassion. I knew that any guy on this anonymous forum deserved to die 100 times over. He was infected. I looked at this guy with pity. Since he was a dying man, There was no need for me to silence him. I carefully found a relatively safe place to put the things away properly, in my heart. I actually hoped that I would never have to use them, however, it's better to be prepared for any eventuality. I clapped my hands and then tiptoed back to my room to catch up on some sleep. In the morning, as the only two science students in the family, Victor and I joined hands to lay a thick layer of the most efficient photovoltaic power generation panels currently available on the roof, the balcony, and the outer walls of the house. This could achieve about 70 to 80% of the power supply for the entire building. We also left quite a few photovoltaic panels, planning to cover the whole mountain with them later. Coupled with a diesel generator, it should be almost enough. Connor and Evelyn were bossed around by us and moved the battery panels around. Victor and I were responsible for installing and connecting the circuits. I'm a chemical engineer. Although it's not exactly my area of expertise, I have experience in installing photovoltaic power generation. In my previous life, photovoltaic power supply accounted for 80% of the total power supply in the base of Jiang City. I took odd jobs when laying the power generation panels. The huge heat generated by the refraction of thousands of photovoltaic panels could instantly incinerate hundreds of zombies. If it weren't for the traders, Jiang City might not have been breached so quickly. I lowered my eyes, hiding the emotions in my eyes. Not far away, Brother Victor called me over to take a look at the circuit. Isla, come here for a moment. Coming, I raised my head with a bright smile and trotted over. 7. With the support of money and knowledge, in just 4 days, our doomsday safe house was already taking shape. Now, the villa, or perhaps it should be called a steel fortress, the outer walls were all reinforced with 2-centimeter thick high-strength steel plates, and the windows were all replaced with professional bulletproof glass. It even thoughtfully added a one-way privacy film. The fence outside the house was reinforced with double-layer steel bars and built 3 meters high. There was a dense circle of high-voltage power grids, and there were even 36 monitors installed, not to mention zombies. Not even a mosquito could get in. The villa has 3 floors, plus the basement, making it a total of 4 floors. The first floor is where we eat and live, in order to maintain a positive and healthy psychological state in the apocalypse. We didn't make too many modifications. We just added a home theater and KTV room for entertainment. The walls on the second floor, except for the load-bearing walls, were all knocked down and divided into 3 areas. Area A was piled high with vacuum-sealed foods such as canned goods and compressed biscuits. Area B housed various hardware tools like high-intensity flashlights, shovels, chainsaws, hammers, drones, and some small household appliances. Area C was used to store daily necessities such as clothes, shoes and socks, sanitary napkins, and quilts. The third floor was reserved for Victor and me as an operating room and a laboratory. We also specially built a low-temperature storage room to store some special medications. In the basement, a gradient cold storage room was set up. Fresh and frozen meats, frozen foods, rice, noodles, fruits and vegetables, and plant seeds were stored in different temperature zones according to their storage requirements. In each room on every floor, walkie-talkies, machetes, flashlights, and stun guns were placed, just in case of an emergency. Except for the rooms where we lived, high-definition military cameras were installed everywhere, leaving no blind spots in the surveillance. Once the preparations were almost done, the 4 of us would just lounge on the big sofa in the living room on the first floor, enjoying the last moments of comfort before the apocalypse. 8. The previously ordered supplies such as medicines were gradually delivered one after another. We also went down the mountain to do some shopping from time to time. Although most of the supplies could be ordered separately via phone and the internet and delivered to the foot of the mountain, there were still some things that had to be bought in person. For example, our future source of protein. We didn't choose to raise poultry like chickens and ducks. Although poultry can lay eggs, their crowing and noise might attract zombies. Moreover, if the breeding hygiene was not properly handled, it could easily lead to plagues. Modern poultry farms would regularly inject and administer a large amount of antibiotics to the poultry they raised to prevent diseases. However, after the apocalypse, any kind of medicine would be as precious as gold, and it would be really uneconomical to use it to feed chickens and ducks. so we chose to raise rabbits. We're buying 24 pairs, give us a better price, we'll come back to your place next time, next life. I held a rabbit in my hand and bargained with the auntie, spitting everywhere as we talked. The 3 cold bodyguards, standing quietly behind me, suddenly moved and grabbed my hand at the same time. What? I was so startled that I almost dropped the rabbit onto the auntie's face opposite me. Not far away, a middle-aged uncle, who was walking, suddenly bent over and coughed loudly. Then he fell to the ground with a thud and couldn't get up. His body was still twitching and convulsing. The people around him screamed and scattered, and someone called 120. I clearly saw that there was a patch of black blood foam left on the ground where the uncle had just been standing. We looked at each other and stopped bargaining. We threw down the money, picked up the rabbits, got in the car, and quickly fled the vegetable market. The first batch of zombies had appeared. 9. After we got home, we tacitly didn't talk about what happened in the vegetable market. We also stopped going out and just silently strengthened the daily patrols and reinforced the defenses of the safe house, waiting for the sword of Damocles hanging over Jiang City to fall. The precious and expensive flowers and plants that were originally planted in the yard, which clearly looked very valuable, were all pulled out by me and replaced with cherry tomatoes and green peppers to supplement vitamins. Now, we had also cleared a piece of land next to the vegetable garden to raise rabbits. The reason we chose rabbits instead of other animals was precisely because of the amazing reproductive ability of this species. Without food pressure, a female rabbit could give birth to more than 500 rabbits in a year. It was simply the best source of renewable protein. Besides, rabbits are so cute. Why don't we brush some honey on it? I rushed to the front excitedly, holding a bowl. Victor was grilling rabbits for us in the yard. The rabbit meat was fragrant and crispy on the outside, with the fat oozing out under the smoke of the charcoal fire. Finally, he sprinkled some cumin and chili salt on it. Gulu. The 3 moochers next to me swallowed their saliva. Okay. Victor's words were suddenly drowned out by a deafening loud bang. Boom, rumble, rumble. It was coming from the direction of the urban area. We knew something was wrong and quickly took out our phones and opened the Dojia live broadcast room in the same city. The rumbling sound in our ears lasted for dozens of seconds and still didn't stop. In the live broadcast room, 10, all we could see was a sea of red. An airplane dived down and diagonally cut the tallest financial building in Jiang City into 2 halves from top to bottom, in the towering mushroom cloud. Pieces of flesh and limbs, along with shards of glass, rained down like rain, the reflection of mirrors and blood intertwined, presenting a cruel and bloody beauty. The shockwave from the airplane explosion instantly blew up the cars driving on the surrounding streets. Dozens of cars tumbled dozens of meters away and crashed heavily to the ground, bursting into flames in a series of explosions. A car was flipped over to the side by the heat wave, and thick black smoke billowed out of the car. The people inside screamed and opened the car window, struggling to climb out. However, they didn't expect that they were just entering another hell. The people on the street who had turned into zombies went crazy under the stimulation of sound, light, and heat, roaring and pouncing on the living people who were fleeing in panic. Screams pierced the sky. The man who was trying to escape through the car window was surrounded by the rushing zombies, who bit and gnawed at him. Only half of his body was left stuck in the car window, dripping blood downwards. The zombies frantically crashed into the still-locked car door. The driver inside, terrified, stepped on the gas pedal and rushed out, crashing into the lady who was running away in front. Bright red blood mixed with white brain matter spattered onto the car window. After a while, the lady who had been knocked down to the ground dragged out her intestines and got up again. She stumbled and pounced on the nearby bloody prey that had been bitten beyond recognition. It was the end of the world on Earth. It was supposed to be the day after tomorrow. I watched this scene of purgatory on Earth in silence, and my hands and feet instantly turned cold, even though I had already deduced that the apocalypse was accelerating in this life. I never expected that this disaster would come so quickly and be so tragic. Humans seemed so small in the face of it. The encrypted message that was supposed to remind the future leader of the base in Jiang City could no longer be sent out. I had originally planned to send it tomorrow. Evelyn held my hand tightly, and I tried to draw a little warmth from her hand. We will all survive this time. Connor's face was uncharacteristically serious. We definitely will, Victor said softly. 11. On August 31st, 2023, the zombie horde broke out ahead of schedule in Jiang City. And there were fewer than 1 million survivors in the whole city. The government army quickly organized a search and rescue operation, established a survivor base for Jiang City in the west of the city, and began to actively recruit survivors. We heard all of this on the radio. The day after the apocalypse arrived, the water and electricity supply in Jiang City was cut off, and the photovoltaic power generation and the generator we had prepared came in handy. However, at the same time, our family faced one piece of good news and one piece of bad news. The bad news was that Evelyn, Connor, and Victor had a fever. They had a high fever of 40 degrees Celsius and were bedridden. The good news was that I, the chosen caregiver, was left in this family. With the knowledge from my previous life, I didn't panic. In the first week after the apocalypse, a rare individual mutation occurred among humans. After a high fever reaction, a small number of people obtained various strange physical enhancements. Some people gained enhanced strength and could break a big rock with their bare hands. Some people gained enhanced eyesight and could see a fly hundreds of meters away without the help of tools. In addition, there were some special abilities, such as obtaining a dimensional space like in novels and so on. The superpowers that people awakened were all kinds of strange. And until I was still alive in my previous life, no pattern had been found in the conditions for awakening superpowers, but one thing was certain: all those who awakened superpowers would have a high fever when they awakened. This meant that, except for me, our family would soon luxuriously have 3 superpower users. However, I'm a technical worker. Even without superpowers, it doesn't matter. Humph, every day I racked my brains to make all kinds of fruit and vegetable juices for them according to the nutritional recipes, changing the ways to improve their immunity, according to the order of red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple. Today it was celery plus balsam pear plus green pepper juice. When I was feeding it to Connor, he still tried to resist, but I suppressed him violently. You little guy, you can't even move, but you still want to be picky. Don't you know how precious fruits and vegetables are now? Victor's pupils dilated in shock when he was lying in bed, but he was smart enough to drink it up by himself. Evelyn gave me a weak glance, and her expression seemed to want to curse, but she also drank it. Tisk, I'm doing all this for your own good. After feeding the bedridden group, I built a small wooden house in the yard and tinkered with some gadgets when I had time. There were occasionally a few wandering zombies outside the villa, and the crossbow could easily shoot them in the head with one shot. Zombies rely on a tiny amount of electric charge in their brains to keep their bodies running. Even if their hearts are dug out, their limbs are severed, or their stomachs are stabbed. As long as their brains can still transmit commands through the spinal neurons, they will still struggle. To kill a zombie, you must either blow up its brain with one shot or decapitate it and sever the spine. It sounds simple, but this is precious experience that countless predecessors in my previous life exchanged with their lives. I thought for a while, sorted out the National Zombie Hunting Standard Code from my previous life, and sent it encrypted to the special channel within the base in Jiang City. 12. On the 3rd day after the apocalypse, when I was on patrol, I found that the special steel lock of the explosion-proof gate seemed to have been pried open. However, when I checked the surveillance, I didn't find anything unusual. It seemed that it was the work of an experienced person who deliberately avoided the surveillance cameras. However, the military explosion-proof gate that we spent a lot of money on wasn't so easy to pry open. Moreover, if he opened this gate, he would be pleasantly surprised to find that, hey, there were still 3 more gates inside. There was no need to guess the person's purpose. After all, with such a huge steel fortress standing here, anyone passing by would be envious. I guessed that this guy would finally choose to climb over the wall to break in. The main function of the high-voltage power grid on the fence was to prevent zombies. If a person put on an insulating suit and made an effort, it wasn't impossible to climb over a 3-meter-high fence. In short, a bit of fun was added to my peaceful life of guarding the house alone. Finally, on the night of the 4th day, a gunshot broke the tranquility of the night. I listened to the gunshot outside the window and my face turned cold. the country would soon recruit special forces teams to go out and clear the zombies and distribute guns to the team members for self-defense. But it wasn't now. The people outside who were trying to attack were a group of desperate criminals. I remembered that after the apocalypse started in my previous life, there was a prison riot. A group of vicious gangsters killed the prison guards and, armed with guns, burned, killed, and looted in Jiang City during the chaos, committing all kinds of atrocities. At that time, the government army didn't have the time to deal with them. Later, when the situation stabilized and the base had the spare capacity to deal with this bunch of trash, this group of pests suddenly disappeared without a trace. Unexpectedly, we would encounter this bunch of trash at this time. 13. I heard there are 2 pretty girls. Hee. When we go in later, kill the men and keep the women for the brothers to have a good time. The yellow-haired guy holding the gun smiled lewdly and spoke obscenities loudly and unbridledly. The group of criminals around him immediately laughed raucously. I sneered in the hidden window. Have a good time. Let's see if you have the life to enjoy it. The leader of the group frowned unhappily. Keep your voice down, big brother. What's the big deal about a few weaklings? We have guns. The man didn't say a word. He just gave a cold glance, and the few people who had been bragging and joking just now immediately shut up. It was obvious that he had a great deal of prestige in this group and could easily suppress these vicious and desperate criminals. I frowned and stared closely at the surveillance. Suddenly, he looked at the hidden camera. As if he had discovered me behind the camera, he raised his hand and shot the camera, blowing it up. In the last scene before the screen went black, I saw, under the moonlight, the ferocious scar on the man's eyebrow corner was particularly clear. That scar, many images flashed through my mind. The masked man with the scar who delivered the express to me overlapped with the extremely arrogant face standing at the gate of the base in Jiang City. He was the zombie daemon. I gritted my teeth so hard that my fingertips dug into my flesh, but I didn't feel the pain. The scenes of the base being breached, the wailing of my companions in my ears, the intense pain of being bitten by zombies, all reappeared in my mind. He absolutely couldn't be allowed to get out of here. I recited these words one by one in my heart. The angrier I became, the calmer my mind became. He didn't seem to have fully turned into a zombie yet, and ordinary weapons should still be effective against him. I quickly mixed the liquid agents with my hands and filled the bottles. I lit the fire. The mouths of a row of bottles ignited simultaneously. Several Molotov cocktails were thrown out from the hidden window, along with a few crisp sounds of the wine bottles exploding. The raging fire immediately spread. The compound combustion improver mixed with oil and wine stuck to the bodies of the people who had just been spouting nonsense. In an instant, they turned into several human torches. As they struggled and rolled, the flames spread to their other accomplices. I looked at Damon, who had dodged the Molotov cocktails, with some regret. So close, go up quickly. Damon, wearing an insulating suit, was climbing on the fence. With a dark face, he shot and killed the subordinates who came up for help with flames on them and shouted at the remaining unharmed people. He was really ruthless. I clicked my tongue in admiration. 14, damn bitch. She's killed so many of our brothers. When I catch her later, I'll make her life a living hell. The yellow-haired guy's foul-mouthed voice came from the top of the wall. Damon didn't say anything, but his face was also very ugly. It was obvious that these beasts hated me to the core. It didn't matter. I could make TNT by hand. The yellow-haired guy landed and stepped on my vegetable field with one foot. There was a soft, ding, sound from the ground. What's that? He was stunned. With a dull explosion, the miniature landmine blew up, shooting out hundreds of steel nails in all directions. The nails shot into his forehead with a whoosh. I tilted my head and smiled. Surprise. These homemade weapons were banned in modern warfare, not because they were backward. Another unlucky guy who accidentally stepped right on the landmine had one of his legs blown into the air, and the other half of his body was immediately shot full of holes like a sieve. The high-temperature steel nails shot indiscriminately at everyone within a 10-meter radius around. Damon was quick-witted and grabbed a subordinate to block in front of him. The sharp iron sheet of the bomb still left a bloodstain on his cheek. It's a pity about the potatoes I just planted. I wonder if there are any left. I walked out of the monitoring room, raised my hand, and turned off the main control switch of the lights. the entire villa on the half-mountain was instantly plunged into darkness as I prepared to welcome the guests. 15 inches the end. Only 2 people were left trying to break in. Damon was using a gun to force that subordinate to open the door. I was hidden in the darkness behind the door. For a moment, I thought they were going to turn on each other. At the same time, the multi-shot crossbow hidden in my sleeve was ready to fire. Although the modified short crossbow had a short range, its instant firing speed was even faster than that of a pistol. Moreover, it wouldn't jam. However, the thing I was expecting didn't happen. Damon still had his prestige. The man obediently kicked the door open. The preset device limited the angle at which the door could open. From the blind spot of vision, I swiftly disarmed the pistol held by the man who had half of his body entering the door. The crossbow completed a door-opening kill. With a swoosh, using the door to block the bullets fired by Damon, I hid back in the darkness again. Under the cover of crackling gunfire, Damon finally entered the steel fortress. "You're very good." In the darkness, Damon's voice, suppressing his rage, sounded. I hid carefully. In the darkness, there was a clanging sound at my feet. It was the Coke can I drank in the morning. "Turn your head away." A pistol was pressed against my back. So this is why Evelyn always taught me not to litter. Who would have thought that I would die because of an easy-to-throw-away can? I twitched the corners of my mouth, resigned myself to turning my head away, waiting to receive the judgment of fate. What about dodging bullets with my body and seizing the gun in a flash? It doesn't exist. Damn it, in the first half of my life, I only knew how to eat, drink, and have fun. This body is really too weak. Sure enough, as the predecessors said, technicians who do manual labor themselves will be punished. Woohoo! Why is there no change even after being reborn? Tears welled up in my eyes, and I was stubborn enough not to cry in front of the enemy. Goodbye, Evelyn, Victor, and Connor. Let's be friends again in the next life. Just as I was making my last words, there were 2 loud bangs from behind me. I shrank my neck. My head was still there, no pain, and I was still alive. I carefully looked back and found Damon lying on the ground, and the 2 guys were smiling at me beside him. It was Evelyn and Connor. They were holding 2 steel rods in their hands and had smashed Damon's head from behind with 2 strikes. I slumped to the ground, gasping for air. While rejoicing at this narrow escape, I couldn't help but curse. "Wow, why did you only wake up now? You scared me to death. I thought I was going to die again. It's so hard to have an extra life." Victor helplessly pulled me up from the ground. I got close and smelled the smell of the 3 of them who hadn't bathed for several days. Tears were almost smoked out, so I started crying and cursing at the same time. "Your courage is still so small." Connor came to be annoying again. I sobbed and told him to shut up. "You talk too much." At this time, just kneel down and kowtow to thank Dad for saving your life. "Are you hungry? What do you want to eat?" Victor was still the reasonable one. I immediately stopped crying and started listing the names of dishes. A foodie never forgets their job no matter where they are. After eating and drinking to our full in the air mixed with the smell of blood, we started to clean up. I kicked Damon's burst head. Even now, it still felt a bit unreal. I never expected that this extremely ferocious and terrifying zombie king from my previous life would actually die under 2 steel rods. Evelyn passed by mopping the floor and gave me a slap. "Don't randomly kick dirty things." We decapitated and burned everything outside the yard to prevent any reanimation. With the looted guns and weapons on us, we felt even more secure. 16. After the short-lived joy, life returned to normal. Victor started to seclude himself to continue the research on the virus vaccine from his previous life. After 3 days of trying our dark cuisine without a cook, we finally gave up the idea of continuing to make shit and only relied on instant and convenient food for sustenance every day. After growing crops at home for a few more days and blowing up all the zombies on the mountain, we finally couldn't hold back our desire to cause trouble and prepared to go into the city to blow up zombies. One morning, just as we were pushing each other to decide who would make the fried eggs for breakfast, hey, don't underestimate this task. It's of great significance to us. After all, this is the only edible source of protein we can make. The door that hadn't been opened for a long time opened. We all looked in unison at the person coming down from the upstairs and asked in unison, "Has the virus sequence been decoded?" Victor shook his head. the process from the previous life has all been restored. For the subsequent work, the computing power here is not enough. Oh, I nodded. This problem couldn't be solved for the time being, but there was a problem that needed to be urgently solved. Brother, I want to eat spicy diced rabbit, my stomach growled at the right time. And I immediately started the mode of clinging to his leg and complaining, you don't know what a hard life your precious one has lived during the days you were researching. They only fed me very salty saltwater boiled noodle paste, half-cooked rice, and burnt fried eggs. Ouch, Evelyn pinched me in embarrassment. The poached eggs mixed with kale that you made when it was your turn to cook weren't any better. Connor immediately fought back. Come on, at least what I made was edible. What you made was beep beep beep. Just looking at it was mental pollution. I didn't back down. Okay, let's cook. Victor rubbed my head. We gathered around the kitchen again to cook together. As an orphan who grew up in an orphanage, I didn't have much to care about in this world, except for my 3 friends. We were all children from the orphanage, and the 4 of us grew up supporting each other. We were not only friends but also family. Finally, the fragrant food was placed on the table. Suddenly, a rustling current sound came from the radio beside us, and then a familiar and gentle female voice. Hello, citizens of Jiang City, the troops are organizing search and rescue work in an orderly manner and clearing the zombies within the scope of Jiang City. Please don't panic and wait patiently for rescue. We looked at each other, put down the chopsticks in our hands one after another, and gathered together to listen to the radio quietly. Now our homeland is in a time of crisis. And everyone is involved in this disaster. We have all experienced a lot of sadness, pain, and separation, but we have been moving forward. As long as hope doesn't die, the spark will always remain. This land will surely welcome the warm spring and blooming flowers again. The country was organizing and calling on survivors to go to the base and warmly inviting those with knowledge and skills to actively join the work of zombie clearance and homeland reconstruction. We were also going there, only the base had professional virus research equipment, but not now. At least we had to finish this meal first. Cheers. I raised the glass filled with sugary cola. Cheers. The 4 glasses clinked. People in the apocalypse were very good at entertaining themselves. Every little bit of happiness in life made people happy. There wasn't much room for sadness here, and people didn't have time to be sad. Just as the radio said, we had been working hard to move forward. As long as hope doesn't die and the spark remains, we will surely welcome the warm spring and blooming flowers again.